Hello, all the crazy people out there. My name is Michael. I like wizards and dragons and making games, and welcome back to Getting Started Making Games in GameMaker. So, in the last couple of these beginner videos that I made, we talked about drawing sprites and all the sprite drawing related functions that GameMaker offers you, and we had a little bit of fun playing dress up with this here character using the different sprite drawing functions. And then we talked about drawing basic shapes, so things like rectangles, circles, ellipses, triangles, that kind of thing. And today I think we are going to follow down that train of thought, and we are going to talk about drawing text in GameMaker. So drawing text in a game is something that you might want to do once in a while, especially when it comes to user interface elements. As with drawing sprites, where if you type draw sprite and then wait for the code help drop down to appear, or if you can force it to appear with the control space, there's a whole bunch of functions relating to drawing sprites. There are also a whole bunch of functions relating to drawing text in GameMaker. And as you might have come to expect by this point, they all do slightly different things. So we'll start with the basic one, draw text with nothing else. And this is going to take three arguments, an X and Y coordinate where we are going to draw our text, and a string containing the text that we want to draw itself. So I'm going to start, I think, by just drawing text floating over the player's head. Let's say at coordinate X and then Y minus 100. And the text that I'm going to draw is going to be, I need to come up with something creative. As I record this, it's like over 100 degrees outside today, and yeah, I think today is going to end up being one of those stay inside and talk about GameMaker sorts of days. So, now if I run the game, we're going to have our duck character, and we're going to have the text hot outside today, isn't it? Being drawn over the duck character's head. So there's a couple of things you might notice about this, and I'm going to tackle them all one by one. So one of them is that the text is kind of like pixelated and aliased. And this is something that you sort of have to be careful with / be aware of when you draw text in GameMaker, and when you draw text in other engines too, but GameMaker has particular ways that you would want to account for this. So when you draw text in GameMaker, you're not drawing a pure font, a pure anti-aliased font, the way that you would in something like Microsoft Word. So what GameMaker does when it draws text on the screen is that it takes your font and it converts it to basically a bunch of individual tiny sprites, one for each letter or glyph, and then it draws those little tiny sprites. And if your game is zoomed in, if your game camera has any zooming or scaling or rotation or any other transformation on it that would cause your sprites to not be drawn exactly one-to-one with the resolution of your screen, then your text may appear pixelated or aliased or otherwise distorted in some way. The same thing is happening with our sprites, because I do, in this example, have a camera viewport that is zoomed in. But if your pixel sprites are authored correctly, and if you are using integer scaling, you tend to, not really notice that much. The pixels will appear big and chunky, as is often desirable for pixel art, but you won't see any, distortions. With text, it's, smoothness is usually desired. At least for a lot of fonts, smoothness is usually desired, and you will therefore notice the scaling artifacts. There's a couple of ways to deal with this, and some of them are a little on the advanced side, so all I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to just disable that viewport camera, and I'm going to just not draw any text with scaling like this. And now if I run the game, the whole game window is half the size, but our text now doesn't have any of that visible distortion on it. Alright, so another thing you might notice about this text is, for example, its color and some of its other properties. And as is the case when you draw things like basic shapes in GameMaker, there's a couple of ways that you can colorize text. One of them is going to be good old-fashioned draw set color, or color with a U if you're from part of the world where you spell the word color with a U. And you can use one of the built-in GameMaker color constants for this. For example, C_white is the default. You also have C_red if you prefer. And this will cause our text to come out being drawn in red. Red might be a little bit more appropriate for that particular sentence, but you can pick whatever color you want. You can also use the make color RGB function if you want to be able to define your own color, or the make color HSV function if you want to use hue, saturation, and value. Or you can go ahead and use just a hex literal. And if I type something like, say, 6666 FF, I think this will turn into a light blue or something. Alright, so maybe a little more purple than blue, but we've now turned our text into that color. There is also a separate function for draw text color right there at the top. And this will allow you to colorize your text not just with a single color, but actually with multiple colors that will be spread over the entire text string. So I can say, I can define 4 colors, and if I define them all to be the same, so we have 4 color values and 1 alpha or transparency value, much like when it comes to drawing sprites or the draw sprite general function. This is going to draw the entire string of text with 1 color. However, if I were to pick different colors, let's say C underscore red for the first 2, and then C underscore, how about yellow for the second 2, then this is going to draw the text. Okay, that's actually a little bit hard to see on the, like, sandy color background, but this is going to draw the text with red on the top and yellow on the bottom. And the order in which the colors are defined, I believe it's the same order as the colors in Draw Sprite General, but you have C1 is going to be the top left of the text, C2 is going to be the top right of the text, C3 is going to be the bottom right of the text, and C4 is going to be the bottom left of the text. So the colors are going to be defined in a clockwise order. And the alpha, again, is global. There's just 1 alpha value that will be applied to all 4 corners. And you can have all kinds of fun with this if you'd like. How professional or not you might consider doing, like, color blending tricks like that is up to you. But if you like to do something silly like that, GameMaker is not about to stop you. So let's move on. So we have Draw Text Extended, which I think is going to be the next one that I should talk about. And we're just going to get rid of those color values. Draw Text Extended is what you will want to use if you want to do any text wrapping. So before I do this, actually, let me go and, let's say, copy this line a couple of times. And if I just run the game like this, then this text is going to run off the screen, and it is going to, like, it's all going to be drawn in one line, and it is going to take up a lot of horizontal space. But if you want any built-in text wrapping, you can use the Draw Text Extended function, and there are 2 new parameters that you will need to supply here. The first is the separation. So this is basically going to be line height. I don't think this is that useful most of the time. I'm going to set it to -1 so that it's basically just going to be ignored for now. And I'll come back to it later. But next we have the width. And this is going to be the actual width in pixel, after which text that flows outside that width is going to wrap around. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm going to have the room itself is 640 pixels wide. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the text wrap at, say, 400. And if I do this, we're going to see that instead of putting all that text on one line, we're going to now have the text wrap. And if you drew an imaginary rectangle around this text that's 640 pixels wide, you would see that the text is going to fit within that width. So the line height is a value that I don't think is really worth messing with that often. I think when the default line, like the default line wrapping height is fine in pretty much, maybe not all, but a vast majority of cases. But if you do want to set some value for the line height yourself, you can stick it in here. So let's say maybe 10. This should cause the text to be a little more squashed on top of itself like this. And if you increase this, the default should be proportional to the size of the text or the font that you are using. The default in this case seems to be about 16. If you want really wide line height, you can set that to 30, and we're going to have our text being drawn with some more spacing in between. Most of the time, if I'm going to do something like this, I will just use the default line height. It's fine, usually. But if you want a little bit more advanced control, you can set that value to something else. Let's see, what else do I want to talk about? So we also have Draw Text Extended Color, so if you want line wrapping and if you want color, you can use the Draw Text Extended Color function. I am not going to go into every single one of these text drawing functions. I think you should be able to piece together what they do on your own. We also have Draw Text Transformed, and this is going to allow you to draw text, but it is going to allow you to scale it, let's say twice on the X and twice on the Y axis, and rotate it somehow. I'm going to start with scaling, and this is going to cause the text to be drawn blown up, and this is going to cause the, like, aliasing, the scaling artifacts to return. On its own, Draw Text Transformed with scaling is probably not, like, something that really looks that good because of these aforementioned transformation artifacts. Again, there are ways the GameMaker offers you to, like, mitigate those problems and to make them not a problem, but they do tend to be more advanced. and I probably will not be talking about them in this video. You can have non-uniform scaling, so if you want a scale of 2 on the X, actually, let's go with 1 on the X and 3 on the Y. We're going to have text that is definitely a little bit squashed looking and stretched looking, with no text wrapping because I'm not doing text wrapping at the moment. We also have rotation, and you can use let's say some degree value. Let's go with 60 degrees of rotation if you want to draw text rotated in some way. It is going to be rotated based on the relative to the origin where you're drawing the text, and I suppose that's a good thing that I should probably talk about next. Before I do that, draw text transformed. There is a draw text transformed color function if you'd like, and there is a draw text extended transformed and a draw text extended transformed color function. Basically, all of the text drawing attributes that you can tack on, so text wrapping, text color, and text transformation, there are different combinations of each of the text drawing functions that take some or all of those arguments. Whether or not that's, like, a really good way to handle, like, an API is up for debate. I don't really love it. I don't think most people really love it. In the future of GameMaker, they are looking to get away from this, but that's probably a ways off right now, and it's probably going to be stuck like this for a while. Anyway, let me go back to draw text. How about draw text extended? And let me go with a line height of -1, so whatever the default is, and let me go back to the text wrapping width of 40. So, something you might notice about the... I think I got rid of more than I wanted to there. So let me go back to the draw text extended function, and I'm going to go with the default line height and a text separation, a text wrapping width of 400 as before. And you will notice that the text, when I draw it like this, especially when I use the text wrapping, it is aligned to the left, and it is vertically aligned to the top of the coordinate where I am having a draw. If I were to actually go and, let's say, draw circle, let me just draw a circle at this position where I am drawing the text so that you can see where the origin is. Let's say the same position, a radius of like 8 and outline only. I'm gonna set that to false. Let me also draw set color, say C_red, and then draw set color C_white. Just so that that circle is not the same color as the text that I'm going to draw. And we can now see that this is basically the origin where the text is being drawn relative to, and it is left aligned and vertically aligned at the top. So if you don't want that, there are a pair of functions. There are draw set h_align for the horizontal alignment of text, and for this you can say fa_left. We have fa_center. And we have fa_right. And this will allow you to left, center, or right align text. We also have draw set v_align, and we have fa_top. We have fa_middle. And we have fa_bottom. And this will allow you to align the drawn text however you like. So we've gone from top left to bottom middle. I think probably center align and maybe... let's say center top. I think that might look aesthetically pleasing for what we're doing here in this example. Alright, so that doesn't look too bad. When you have text drawing above a character's head like that, center alignment is not a bad option. This will still be applied. Let's go back to draw text transformed. This will still be applied if you are going to draw text extended transformed, I think. Because I will want wrapping and rotation. This will still be applied if you do transform your text with something like draw text extended transformed. What did I have before? 60-degree angle. So if I draw the text like this, we are still going to have the text like center top aligned where this red circle is, but it is still going to be rotated about that point. And now when you do this, you really can see the text aliasing from the transformation. All right. So, I think there is one last obvious thing to talk about when it comes to drawing text, and that is going to be that at this current moment, I am drawing the text at a position in the world, and it is being drawn relative to where the player is standing, and You can, of course, draw the text at a fixed position in the world, so if I were to hard-code a position and not make it relative to my X and Y position, we can have our text being drawn at a fixed location like this. But if I were to go and have, for example, a camera that follows the player around, so let me go and re-enable viewports and cameras. Let me change the height and width of the viewport so that it's going to be not the entire room. If I were to do something like this, it is definitely conceivable that you might want the text to follow not the player around, but the text to follow the basically the game window around, and always be drawn relative to a certain point on screen. And there is a whole entire system that GameMaker has known as the GUI layer, which is for doing exactly that. And oftentimes when you draw text in games, you will want to use that. But I think that is going to be a subject for another video, because it does get fairly... There are a lot of things you can do with it, and I think it warrants its own video, and I won't be talking about it today. But do be aware that that exists, and that you might want to look into it in the future. Another thing that I will be talking about in probably the next video that I post, hopefully later today, is going to be dealing with fonts. So the default font that you get when you draw text in GameMaker, if we're being real with ourselves, it doesn't look very good. Even when it's not rotated and stretched and aliased in weird ways. Like, in the world of typography, this is only like a half step less boring than something like Basic Arial or Helvetica. And GameMaker does indeed give you functions for dealing with fonts. But because that's also going to turn into a whole thing, I will make a separate video just for that. Lastly, one of the facts of life that you unfortunately kind of just have to get used to if you're going to participate in the GameMaker community is that whenever you do anything using one of the draw text functions, it is pretty much inevitable that within about 5 seconds, someone is going to pop up and say, why are you using the draw text functions? Why are you not using Scribble? Scribble is this wonderful little GameMaker extension that pertains to drawing text, and it can do a lot of things. It can patch up a lot of shortcomings in the built-in draw text functions, such as not being able to do things like change the color of text in the middle of a line, and applying different text effects, shaking text, rainbow text, waving text, etc. But I do think a lot of GameMaker veterans over-dramatize the built-in draw text function being bad. If it does all you need it to do, then it's fine. And I will always be an advocate for not over-engineering solutions that you don't need. If you do run into some of the limitations of the built-in text drawing systems that the built-in functions aren't able to accommodate for, then by all means be aware that there are other solutions out there. But don't feel like peer pressured into overcomplicating your project if you don't need to. Anyway, with that, I think I'm going to end it off here. This is going to look very bizarre. All of my sample projects end up looking bizarre by the time I'm done with them. But my name is Michael. I like Wizards and Dragons and making games. I like to post videos on all kinds of stuff you can do in GameMaker, so if anything like this appeals to you, feel free to subscribe. I make videos on both beginner subjects and also more complicated subjects. I have a Patreon, so if you'd like to contribute to the channel, links to that can be found in all the usual places. You should all go check out Wizarducks and the Lost Hat, which is one of the games that I like to work on when I'm not doing YouTube stuff. Link to the Steam page can be found down below. That is where this particular duck sprite comes from. I hope you all found this useful, and I will see you all later. Special thanks to Zenjamin, Zach Robinson, Squarecrow, Spydie Games, Pixelated Pope, Paradox, Nykotic, Manta Ray, GameMaker, GameArt Indie, Edward Holt, DJ Gibbles, Bokeh Dev, and Argo the Knot for supporting these videos. If you want to join their ranks and contribute to the channel, head on over to the Patreon page down in the video description to join the fun.